This is the backside of the Riccar 104B 330 Duchess or something. It's got a lot of names on it. It matches other machines that are marked the 104B. It's deep clean. It's moving now. I hung the motor back off of it because it was entirely submerged in my sonic cleaner to bust all the old grime out of it. And when I got it, it did have these delightful original Matsushita plastic plugs on it, but these are from the 1950s and these are very brittle, and since I had to remove them to get the motor out, and I'm going to be making this work and passing it on to someone to help them learn to sew. It's not a restoration. I'm going to put those aside and use them for if someone wants a restoration done. Because those are safe enough if you're restoring a machine and you want it to be very original and look good, but they are not something that I would just put back on a machine for anyone because they're not suited to getting mistreated. You know, you'd have to be treating them as a vintage device and taking care when plugging them in and unplugging them. So it's a lot better to just go straight for replacing the wire or the plugs with a modern plug since I had to remove them. And then this machine didn't have a power block with it either, so it uses the standard Mercury Electric style twin plug block that has the motor and the light socket on it. Those are, the one I got is marked 700, so I think that's 700 style when you order it. And you can order the new ones complete with a pedal, or you can order them with just a tail, plug on one side, tail on the other. I like rebuilding the old ones, which is why I just sort of rebuild the old ones when they're on the channel, but they're certainly, it's simpler and easier to just buy a replacement if you're not in the mood to rebuild the old one. And then since I had this apart and dipped, I've soaked it in oil and I've worked it a bit by hand, and it is turning freely by hand here. So I'm just gonna plug it in and run it a bit and soak it with oil so that it can finish working fresh oil into all of those joints that were cleaned out by dipping this in degreaser and then penetrating fluid. And the degreaser dip obviously gets rid of all the old grease and oil, and then the penetrating fluid actually goes back in and gets rid of a bit of grease that might have been missed, but more importantly, of course I popped this apart, more importantly, it goes in and displaces a lot of the water that got into the water from the degreaser. So, displaces any of that moisture. So the penetrating fluid then, oh, that did not go underneath that. Alright. Come on, you. There we go. Always make sure you get your tails wrapped firmly underneath any of the screw terminals. Because that prevents there from being a lot of loose wires that can move around in your connection. There. Alright. Now, I'm going to finish wiring this together, I guess, before I plug it in. Put a new block together, and this machine is moving. So, let's see if we can wind a bobbin and complete a stitch test. So I'm going to do... I think this thread guide needs to get straightened. It looks bent over and crackled here, and if it was up higher, about here, then it wouldn't rub thread across the top of the machine. So we'll have to get something done with that, and then oop. Is that tension button not? No, that tension button is functioning. Alright. Let's see if we can... There we go. And will it stop? Oh. Oops. The auto stop didn't work, so maybe we'll adjust that. Because that should have popped the bobbin off winding earlier. Let's see, can I tell how to do that? No, that's going to be inside the end there. Alright, well, we'll figure that out in a bit. It runs real fast though. And then I gotta stick my tensioner back in. I popped that out and I did not take the set screw out. Okay, good. So the thing you gotta line up with these when they've got a finger on the side like this is that the check spring from the tensioner is supposed to come around and stop right before it hits the... Yeah. Adjust it so that check spring is basically straight up. There. And then it barely hits this finger, but it doesn't slam into it real bad. Alright, let me... grab a needle and do a stitch test. Stuck the tensioner back in, and I'm going to set it to our maximum zigzag and see what kind of stitch we get. I did pick out a manual, or I did get the manual, and it looks like we got bunching on the underside, so our tensioner is not working correctly. Oh. This spring wedged itself down under there and is not doing the check spring action. Alright. Gotta rotate that up around so that set. Yeah, it's hitting the stop on the back of the tensioner before it hits under this finger and gets stuck. So let's try that. Still getting some bunching there. It's starting to look good. What does this feel like when I pull on it? Oh, there's almost no tensioner in that. Tension in that tensioner. Why? Alright, let's see why that tensioner's got nothing on it. Okay. Pull the thread out of the machine. It's the first step to checking this. Okay. Is there a... Oh yeah. There is something missing. This tensioner is not... Let's see now. Alright, so... when you lay the two tension discs on this tensioner, try and there, get our check spring back out of the way. The spot where our release is coming out of there, so the this post is sitting too high. There is a spot in the back here, so let's, can I, I'm gonna have to get a better tool for loosening that. Nope, that bit is not ground to fit. Does this one fit? Yes. Alright. Okay, so loosen that set screw, and then this post should come out of there. Wiggle it back and forth and see if that... There we go. Oh. There's our spring, and the spring was on there wonky. And this post wasn't seated properly. Yeah, I think this post is supposed to be further in. Alright, well, I'm going to clean that center hole out and clean off this base of the post here and get that reassembled properly. Alright, the tensioner had an issue with the release pin when I reassembled it. So, it seems to be working. Got a pretty nice stitch, this one here, out of it. So now, the issue that we have now is that this dial should go all the way both directions, and it stops after 2 stops. So I need to first try out some stitches here. See if it is selecting the stitch it says it's selected. Yeah, it is an interesting, I think I showed this cam, has a silver and a gold side, so you do have to flip the cam on the back to get the 2 different kinds of stitches, but oh, and I absent-mindedly set my tension to 0 for a test, and of course clogged everything up. Alright, well, I guess I will get that gunk out of there. And what did we get? We got I think this is the silver pattern, actually. So I will check the cams, and we'll have to poke in the top anyway, so I'm gonna be back when we're poking in the top.